Officer James Harris from DeLand, Florida, was chasing after a 30-year-old by the name of Marlon Brown. He was on the run from the police after they tried to stop him for a seatbelt violation. Now, I don't really know why he was running away from the cops, but understandably, the cops wanted to chase him and they wanted to detain him. Now, in the process of doing so, something really tragic happened, and we do have video of it, and I want to warn you that it's a very graphic and difficult video to watch. But it is important to look at it if you want to understand exactly what happened in the story. So with that said, let's take a quick look. So as you can see, Marlon Brown was run over by the cop, and the incredible part about this story is the cop will not face any criminal charges for what happened. This case went to a grand jury. The prosecutors could have decided to pursue this case, but the grand jury decided not to go forward with the case, not to go forward with any charges against the police officer. He was fired from the police department, so at least there was that in terms of some sort of justice. And the county did pay the family about $550,000 as long as they promised not to pursue in a civil case. But the family is pretty much outraged that a criminal case will not happen, especially given the evidence that you guys saw right now. And they're asking for an independent investigation into this matter because they do feel that what the officer did was wrong. What's incredible is the grand jury believes that there wasn't sufficient evidence, even though that video exists. And one issue that you should keep in mind is whenever there's a jury involved, of course, there's a huge possibility of bias. And the press was reporting this as, oh, Marlon Brown, who was a known felon.
I think his name is Marlon Brown.
Is it Marlon? I apologize.
It's tough to tell on this, but it's Marlon.
Yeah. Okay, it's Marlon Brown. I apologize. So the press kept reporting that, Marlon Brown was a known felon. So if the jury had heard about the case or was depending on the press for that case, well, then they would be led to believe that he was a dangerous guy, and it was probably...
Right, completely irrelevant and moot point because they didn't know who they were chasing, obviously, when they were chasing him. I really try my hardest when I see things like this to err on the side of the cops at first, at least. Because most of these people are good people trying to do their job and maintain civil order and all that kind of stuff. But when you watch that video, I mean, even if the guy stumbled a little bit and the cop thought he was going to get real close, and there's just no even veering off in any way or hesitation in any way. I mean, that just looks like they just mowed him down.
Yeah, the cop.
Here we go.
The cop ran past past two other cops and kept going. I mean, he does fall. He falls late. In the grand jury's defense. And, the press reports, again, they're just quoting the police saying that he's a known felon. I got no problem with that being reported. They go to the grand jury. The grand jury didn't see that tape. So I don't know whether it was not available at the time or for whatever reason. I mean, the mere existence of that tape would seem to me to be enough to say, okay, we're not going to go back to the grand jury, but we can throw an independent investigation up here. And, of course, grand jury is incredibly confusing to a lot of people. There is nothing that binds prosecutorial authorities over to having to go to a grand jury. They can just charge the guy. They don't have to go to a grand jury. They can make that decision on their own. Clearly, this would seem to warrant, to me, some sort of further investigation. And it may well be that the cop was like, I tried to stop and I couldn't, in which case maybe it's not a crime. I don't know. I'm glad he was fired, and I'm glad the family got paid. But somebody in authority needs to see that video as part of determining whether there should be criminal charges filed.
Absolutely. I find it curious that prosecutors didn't decide to just go forward with prosecution without going to a grand jury, especially since they can unilaterally make that decision. So I just feel like there might be some bias at play here, and I would have liked this case to go to a trial because you're right, Ben. I mean, there is a possibility that it was a really horrific mistake, but I would like the evidence to be provided, and I would like a full-on investigation into this because you can't have cops running over people and killing them and then not facing any criminal charges for it.
And the grand jury, of course, all grand jury proceedings are completely secret. When you go before a grand jury, you can't bring your lawyer in with you. The saying always in New York, which is that any New York prosecutor went before a grand jury could get a ham sandwich indicted. That's how frequently they returned indictments.
Right.
So the other options they have is just charging them on their own. You don't have to have a grand jury. They could have done a coroner's inquest, which is a public hearing. So we would have at least seen everything. It wouldn't have happened in secret with the grand jury. The family would at least know that there was some sort of public investigation. Interesting things is that the lawyer for the family, for Marlon Brown's family, is Benjamin Crump, who represented Trayvon Martin, and the medical examiner, whose name I still can't pronounce, but I think it's Shipping Bow. He was the medical examiner in the Trayvon Martin case. And one of the things he said was that the car didn't ever strike Marlon Brown. He had no broken bones, but he was pinned underneath the car and suffocated. I don't know. I'm not a medical examiner. That seems impossible to believe.
I mean, it doesn't seem to be what happened in that video. And if that was the case, then why didn't they?
Why did they get him
car?
out? Right. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's what it's worth. It's worth. Boy, the special prosecutor, look into it.
Yeah, and not to just mention Florida again, but this is just another thing that's gone on in Florida where their laws appear to be so backwards, and where this type of thing, where again we don't know that there's a racial element to this. We're saying, but once again, this is a black man being killed.
Yeah, we don't even know the we don't know the color of the cop. For that matter.
And I'm not even saying that matters at any level, but Florida seems to have a consistent history with some weird stuff.